Hey, what is going on, everybody out there? This is Jakejames Lugo, Senior Editor here at thecoalition.com. Welcome to the website. Welcome to this additional podcast follow-up to a story I covered earlier this year and even towards the end of last year, I want to say, with all the stuff that had been happening. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, if you haven't already checked it out, definitely look up on thecoalition.com with my two prior discussions or my podcast videos about the Gamer Gauntlet Cruise controversy. So if you guys didn't know, back then in those two episodes, I actually had a talk with Curtis Smith, who was the person that was helping create and run the Gamer Gauntlet Cruise, which was coming under a lot of fire, under a lot of controversy for a number of different things. And then in my follow-up, I had even more information with Zach from Money Matches, the CEO of Money Matches, that company that was one of the sponsors and one of the head companies that was being a part of that whole series of events. So now we have an additional follow-up, which divulges even more information about stuff that has been going on. With me, I have Cesar Diaz, who is the CEO of Video Gamers United, and he has some extra information for us about everything that's been going on. So Cesar, welcome. Thanks for talking with me about all this stuff. How have you been?
Pretty good, man. Thanks for giving me this opportunity, man.
Yeah, sure. So let's just dive right into everything. So tell me a little bit about your relationship with Curtis Smith. Tell me a little bit also about your relationship with the Gamer Gauntlet Cruise. Like, did you have anything to do with it? Did you have anything to do with the planning or pretty much, the announcement of the Gamer Gauntlet Cruise? What is this whole deal about?
So fortunately, no, I don't have any kind of relation to that Gamer Cruise fiasco, man. I came into contact with Curtis because I was trying to put on a video game convention. I had a video game lounge at Annapolis Mall in Maryland. And he was brought to my attention. They said, hey, he can get you some corporate sponsors. And I met with him, and, he had all these great contacts. He said, he knows all these great people. And I took his word for it. And it wasn't exactly, it didn't pan out for whatever reason or another. Some of these corporate sponsors didn't come through. But in the midst of us trying to work this piece out, he realized that, the convention was kind of a big deal. And it could be a really big, a thing for the both of us. So he wanted to partner up. So we ended up partnering up on the convention that took place in 2014.
Yeah. So how was that? That was like one of your guys' first events, or at least that was your company's first event. That was Video Gamers United, correct?
That was right. That was our only event. So I know I've seen emails from Curtis to other people, other companies and sponsors that he's touting how lavish and big and so many people came to this event, and he talks about other events that we might have, that he says that we did, which is flat out untrue. We only did the one event. It was a decent turnout. It wasn't what we were expecting or hoping, but it wasn't definitely what he was telling other people either. And the amount of money that we made and things of that nature, it was just telling all these different companies these things to make it sound like it was, a great turnout, and we've got the capacity and the ability to do that again. And that's why their company should be on board with what we were trying to do. And what he was doing was, it wasn't really what we were trying to do. It was, he set up his own company behind my back to kind of, use what we were doing to kind of promote that, and then he was going to peel off and do his own thing, which turned into Gamer Gauntlet.
Yeah. Now, exactly how does that kind of play into everything that was going on with the Gamer Gauntlet Cruise? Because what you had sent me prior to us discussing there, full disclosure, we had a conversation prior to you coming on the record, which we appreciate, and you had sent me not only two documents, you sent me a cease and desist that you had sent over to Curtis through your lawyer, through your legal advisor, as well as also an open letter to a bunch of the sponsors and the other companies that were getting associated with the Gamer Gauntlet Cruise. So tell me exactly how all that came to pass. How exactly did you find out about it, and what was the kind of reaction or what had happened, or those series of events, in relation to some of the other sponsors and companies that was going on? According to you, or at least from my understanding, a lot of this stuff seems to have been done, without not only your knowledge, but also kind of utilizing your resources, as you said, from Video Gamers United for this new event that you had nothing to do with.
Right. So, aside from doing the actual one convention, what we were doing also smaller events, as promotional items. So we took a lot of photos, a lot of cool pictures and things like that. So all of that was up on the website. He had access to all that good stuff. And then obviously he had an official email address that came from VG Yukon or what have you. And he was reaching out to a whole bunch of folks and kind of saying that he was working on this show. It was going to be in Virginia. And, he was planning, he was making all these different plans that I wasn't aware of, making all these deals under VGU's name that I was not aware of. And we were supposed to talk these out together as partners, are supposed to do, right? And he was just doing this all on his own, and he was taking money from sponsors, and it was going directly into his account. So he would say, hey, look, do you want to be a corporate, not a corporate sponsor, an exclusive partner with us, And they would say, yeah. And he would say, okay, give me $20,000, and then you're it. And then he would come back and tell me, say, hey, look, these guys are going to be a sponsor, but they're going to promote it on their end, and that's how they're paying for it.
But they weren't. So it wasn't really discussed with you prior to that.
Correct, right. So he would say, hey, these guys are on board, and the example I'm giving you is just one example, but they were, and it was a really big example, and that's I wasn't aware of that $20,000, that part, which actually happened. That's on the cease and desist letter. I wasn't aware of any of that until I did my own investigation of what was going on. But he would do that with other sponsors, and my assumption is, and this is all an assumption, is that that's what he was doing. He would come to me and say, hey, look, for instance, the Washington Nationals, which was one of our sponsors, baseball team. He says, hey, Washington Nationals are on board. They're going to give us tickets to some games and let us promote at some of their games, and that's how they're paying for it. But I don't know if they paid him something on the side, maybe $5,000-$10,000 or $1,000, and he's just taking that money. So I'm just assuming that that's something that happened. I know some attendees complained about that as well, saying that they paid and they didn't get what they were supposed to get from him, and so it was a lot of that kind of shadiness. So I just noticed that Curtis was doing a lot of planning in his personal life. And that was exceeding his means, right? So I knew he wasn't making, we weren't making any money from VGU. As a matter of fact, VGU was in debt. And so, he was doing other things in his personal life. And I'm like, man, that's kind of expensive. How's he working that out? And just something kind of dawned on me. I said, you know what? Let me go check his emails. So I own the email domain. So I looked through all that stuff. And that's when I noticed, he was talking to all these people, and he was using the pictures from VGU and from other events that we were a part of, and using the website to say, hey, look, we've done this, we've done that. We were with Twitch, and there was 1 million people online watching a stream, and we charged people this much money, and it was just insane, and it was out of control. And I was like, kind of,
there was a lot of fabrication, like a lot of hyperbole and a lot of stuff that was maybe over exaggerated.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, he could have wrote a book, man. I mean, I was just like, this is insane, and it's shocking when you see that, at first blush, you're just like, holy cow. Because then now I'm thinking I'm going to be responsible for all this stuff, because he could just easily
you're
walk
his
off
partner at this point.
Right, yeah. So I confronted him, and he of course denied it the same way he did to Zach on the Periscope video. He was just like, coming up with excuse after excuse and not getting into the details of the matter. And I said, well, you know what? Screw this. You're out. We signed some paperwork that says he's out. But, he signed deals with all these other companies that,
under
for
the
instance,
VGU name, under your company's
correct.
name.
Yeah. So, like, for instance, hotels around the area. Washington D.C. is a pretty popular, city, right? And ton of hotels, and the convention center is like smack dab in the middle. So he made these deals with these hotels, and it's like, oh yeah, do some room blocks, and we're going to fill up all those rooms, so they'll block off all these rooms, and just so you know how it works, right? They block off all these rooms, and they're going to hold it for us on the date that we're going to do the convention.
How many rooms were there in total? Do you know?
Oh, I couldn't tell you offhand, because there was so many hotels that he did this with I'm still kind of, finding these skeletons in the closet, man. And it's. So he would say, hey, hold off on these rooms, and they'll give us a rebate once they filled up, and we never did a second show. So these rooms were blocked off, and they were never used. So obviously these hotels are going to say, well, we want some compensation for that. It cost us, $50,000, $75,000, and they're coming to me like, hey, we signed this deal, and for one in particular, they showed me the contract, and I never saw that thing in my life. And one of them, Curtis signed as a CEO. One of them he signed as a COO, which was what his title was. But when they gave the address to the company, it was his address. And then he even told them in an email explicitly, like, hey, if you're going to send any correspondence or anything about this matter, send it to my address here. or to the address here. So that way it would circumvent me altogether, and I would never see it.
So I have a question now. With all of this, this sounds like fraud, at least to me, offhand. Again, I'm not someone that's, legally savvy, or I don't know the terminology for stuff like this, but it does sound a little bit like fraud because, he's claiming ownership or claiming a certain title that obviously isn't true. So was there any legal action that was taken by you or your company towards him, after finding all this stuff out and actually discovering all this after the conversation that you had with him?
So I got real close to doing that. There was one case in particular where he borrowed $10,000 from a personal friend of his, in return for equity in the company, which was something that he did before we even had an agreement signed amongst ourselves. And so we were going to court for that, and I was trying to be supportive because he explained it to me. He said, "Hey, look, we were on the verge of signing it. I was a little preemptive, but I'm going to pay him from my half anyway. So let's not worry about." The issue of he has ownership in the company. I'll take care of that on the back end. Let's just try to get him his money. So I was like, all right. And I went to court and tried to, talk on my, at least on my behalf. And, we were supposed to meet up there, and, he left me high and dry. So after that, so it was just me there with this guy that I don't even know. And he's just like, yeah, I'm suing you. I'm just like, oh man, this is crazy. So I said,
somebody you never even met before. Somebody you never even met before.
Oh goodness. Yeah, no. This was a friend of Curtis's from like when he was a teenager. So he went back to his, his yearbook and said, "Hey man, you got any cash? I'm starting this company, and it's gonna be huge." And of course, he did the Curtis thing where it's like it's gonna be 50,000 people, and Luke Skywalker's gonna be there, and all all the craziness.
Luke Skywalker, what do you mean?
The guy's like, I'm just throwing it out,
okay,
something,
yeah.
right?
No,
whatever.
I just gotta ask.
And, no, no, he didn't say it. I'm making a joke. I'm being facetious, but I'm sure that's what he did. He sold it up and said, "Hey, look, this is going to be a huge show. This is going to be a big deal. You definitely want to be a part of it." And that's the guy told me that's what it was. He said it sounded like it's going to be a great thing, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I gave him $10,000 for some shares in the company, and then the guy's like, so when we did our first show, that's the only way I found out about it. He found our emails. For myself and some other folks on the website, and he shot out all the emails. Says, "Hey, you guys had a great show. Looking for my cut." And I was like, "Who the hell is this guy?" So Curtis explained it to me, and we ended up going to court. And as I said, we were supposed to meet there, and he left me high and dry. And I was just like by myself with my lawyer. And my lawyer's like, "Well, where's Curtis? Because he's supposed to explain all this." So I talked to my lawyer and I said, "Look, hey, look, we're gonna have to take action against Curtis because this is insane." And this was I was just catching wind of all that stuff.
Now, what year was this? This was 2015, 2016? Because I know the cease and desist and the other document you sent me was dated for 2016.
Yeah, it was like towards the middle of 2016. I kind of drug it out. I did the same thing kind of what Zach did, right? Because watching the Periscope videos, I said I'm going to give him a chance to kind of fess up. So we would hang out because again, I was with Curtis for a long time, and he and I became kind of friends, and I hate to say that now, but it is what it is. And we would hang out, and I would say, "Hey man, anything new going on? Anything that I need to know, or anything kind of crazy going on?" And, nope, nothing. So I'm thinking, and I was giving him the benefit of the doubt of, well, maybe he's trying to set something up that because like I said, VGU was in debt. So I'm thinking maybe he's trying to set something up that's going to get us out of debt, and he's just trying to set up the initial stages.
But you never talked about it specifically, I guess.
No. Yeah. So I'm thinking he's going to, once it's all kind of panned out and it's kind of like all like a straight shot, I was assuming like, oh, maybe he'll come to me after the fact. But I wanted to keep pressing the idea, the question, like, hey, anything new every time we would hang out, and nothing every time. So sure enough, I confronted him, and of course he denied it all. And I said, dude, I said, you're trying to walk away with the company, man. I was like, what do you, he was like, I could walk away with the company right now if I wanted to. And I was like, all right, let's see you try that, man. And so I talked to my lawyer, and, my lawyer says, okay, look, what are we talking about here? You're going to sue him for what?
Was this prior to you finding out about him signing all these different things under the company's name or anything of the sort?
Yeah. Yeah, because I only knew about one or two other instances where he signed off from investigating the emails. I saw like one or two emails where he signed off on a few different items that he signed off as in the name of EGU, but without my knowledge. So it might have been like maybe two or three. I can't recall. It was it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But Yes, but it's all in the cease and desist, I think, if I'm not mistaken. It's all in there. And you know, so he signed off on all these different things, and I kind of confronted him about all that. And you know, my lawyer says, "Hey, you're going to sue the guy. You know, he's not making any money. So what are you going to get? You're going to get a court order that says he owes you this much money, and he's never going to pay you. You're going to be chasing this guy for money, and you would have spent more money than what you're getting back, right? You know, so he's like, what's the point? You know, so he was, you know, my lawyer says, hey, look, he was like, do you think this because, and initially, by the way, if you go back and you Google VGU Gamer Gauntlet, that was the original name of the show.
Yeah, that's what I did also. I actually did that prior to us talking and prior to us like actually setting up this interview. I actually did so and actually looked up the stuff of what you're describing now.
Yeah, and so you see, and it was, and if you looked at the old logo, it had VGU and it was the same kind of color. It was just a different font, but you know, yeah. So you know, it was the likeness, it was the name, and I was like, well, he's stealing the brand. You know, I'm telling my lawyer this, and my lawyer goes, well, do you think that this show is going to be successful? And I was like, not if he's doing it. I was like, it's not. And I was like, I know exactly what he's going to do. I know that game book, man, that game plan. And he's like, well, just let it ride out then, man, and let him, you know, fail and then, you know, see where you are afterwards, you know. And yeah, so that's, you know, that's kind of where I am now. You know, it all failed out, and I'm trying to, you know, kind of pick up the pieces, and you know, hopefully we could put another show on here real soon. Here in DC again, you know, hopefully.
So I have a couple questions that maybe you could clarify a little bit about. So you mentioned earlier about some of the hotels and the different places, you know, holding off as far as like different rooms and such, and they were coming back to you or essentially the company asking about compensation because obviously those rooms need to be paid for in some fashion. Now, with the video game Gauntlet Cruise, okay, obviously they had companies like Royal Caribbean which got involved, which we talked about not only just with Curtis but also with Zach in my previous 2 interviews with them, and that got brought up a lot. Also, Red Bull Esports, I believe it is, or Red Bull also got brought up a lot. Were any of those companies also hitting you up about something similar in relation to the Gamer Gauntlet Cruise? Did they try to sue, or did they try to at least have a conversation about what was going on with you?
No, I actually reached out to Royal Caribbean, you know, because I saw all the email traffic going back and forth, and when I sent the cease and desist out, that open letter that you've got. That's what I sent out to all those folks, and some of those folks were with the Royal Caribbean, and because you know, again, I didn't want anybody else to be taken advantage of. I'm like, you know, this guy's gonna go out there and he's gonna swindle the Royal Caribbean, and I'm sure they've got deep enough pockets where they can kind of recover no problem. But I'm thinking of other folks that are, you know, small businesses that he's gonna try to get to do some stuff, which was absolutely the case, and they've all reached out to me, and you know, they were like kind of thanking me, like, dude, thanks for telling me because I was about to spend a bunch of money to go do some stuff, and I don't have that money, you know? So, yeah. So that's really what I was kind of trying to stop from happening, which is, you know, just kind of stop it altogether. But yeah, I shot that out to Royal Caribbean, and they, you know, they never replied back. I saw they sent, so this is what, you know, I forwarded all of Curtis's emails to me. So I sent it to them. They shot an email to Curtis to say, hey, Curtis, what's going on with this? Can we talk? And then I shot them back another email, and I said, Curtis no longer has access to this email, but trust me, you know, you're being swindled, in not so many words. And I never heard back from them. And
you didn't have any like phone conversation or any other dialogue after that with them?
No, because I didn't want, you know, again, this was very fresh wounds, you know, and I was still kind of reeling from all the other, there was a lot of court interactions that I was going to court like a lot at that time. And I was just like, dude, you know what? I need to just focus on my own thing and focus on getting myself, like keeping myself out of trouble. So I kind of ignored what was going on with Curtis, but if anybody reached out to me, I would definitely kind of give them the lowdown, and that's what happened throughout the months and years, you know, that people would come up to me and say, hey, look, you know, I haven't heard from Curtis, and he's supposed to give me XYZ, and I say, well, look, this is what's going on with Curtis, you know, because they would see it on our website where it would say, you know, we're not affiliated with Curtis Smith. It was like on our front page, and people would do their research and come across my website and come across that, and then reach out to us and say, you know, what's going on. So
were any of those people like at least, you know, asking about refunds for attending the cruise or at least the event and stuff like that? Because aside from the people that maybe he had promised or made some sort of business arrangement with, was there any other people that were hitting you up like over social media and stuff?
Not through social media, but through the email. Yeah, there was a one girl, and I felt so bad for her. This was terrible. You know, he announced on Facebook, says, hey, you know, come to PAX San Antonio. And if you hand out flyers,
that's PAX South. That's PAX South. Just for everybody listening.
Right. And he says, you know, you come to PAX South, I'm going to be there. And all you gotta do is hand out flyers. And I think he was giving them like a discount or maybe even like a 3-day pass to the Gauntlet, to the cruise or something crazy like that. But it was like something like a great deal. And this girl was like, hey, yeah, I'm down. I'll do that. And I can't remember where she drove from, but she was like, yeah, I'll do it. And he was like, yeah, perfect. Even better. I'll give you $100 when you get here as payment, And she was like, sweet. So she drives however many hours. If I remember correctly, it was quite a ways. And she got a room out there and she's waiting and she's trying to call him and because he gave her his number.
Yeah.
And she's calling and whatever having you. He's not answering. And she's texting him. She's sending him messages on Facebook. And she sent me all the images to say like all the, to corroborate her story. Right. So, because I'm always leery about that stuff myself. I'm just like, oh, this is just Curtis trying to get me to do something crazy, So she's hitting him up and he's not answering. And she spends like the entire day waiting. She even went to PAX and even talked to the folks at PAX, like some of the people that work there. She said, oh yeah, he has a booth. And they were like, no, there's no Gamer Gauntlet booth here. I don't know what you're talking about.
They didn't know anything about that.
Right. And so she was like, all right, screw it, I'm leaving. After a while, she ended up leaving, going back home. And then he called her after the weekend and was like, oh, my phone broke. Sorry, and she's just like, but that can't be. And she told me, she didn't tell him that, but she told me, she was like, well, that can't be because I can see when you read the messages on Facebook while you were at the convention and while you were at PAX. So how could your phone be broke, but you're checking your Facebook statuses?
Yeah.
So, and I think all that was, and I told her, I was like, well, I think all that was that he was out there with another company that actually had a booth, and they said, hey, you could come out there and help, promote your stuff because they were going to be at the cruise. So it was like a one hand wash at the other, right?
Like a cross promotion.
Right. They already have space at PAX, and they're going to be at the Gauntlet, so they want people to be at the Gauntlet. So they say, Curtis, you come to PAX and promote that cruise. And so he was trying. All he wanted to do was be able to kind of hang out and chill, and then other people kind of promote. So, but it didn't work out that way. And I felt so bad for her because she spent money, and she actually went out of her way to go out there and do things for this. So she was kind of like and I told her, I said, hey, I'm sorry, but this is what's going on. She was like, wow, I can't believe that I'm going to tell all my friends and So it was stuff like that.
So
was kind of coming.
Speaking of which, and one of the other things I think we should clarify, based off of my previous 2 discussions, both with Zach and Curtis and stuff, there was obviously a lot of promise of celebrities that were going to be at the Gamer Gauntlet Cruise, as well as also a lot of other influencers and media personalities, some of which were my own personal friends. As I was reporting this news, I had a couple colleagues of mine from various outlets that were actually going to attend to cover the Gamer Gauntlet Cruise. Like they were going to go on the cruise and actually report from it and get pictures and coverage of it and stuff. Did any of those people or celebrities that have been mentioned at the time that were posted on their website and stuff, did they actually contact you, or did you reach out to them? Don't mean specifically the companies, like the sponsors, but like the different personalities that were announced as like special guests and stuff.
The only one that I can't say that I try to really reach out, but there was somebody that knew Mega Ran, and they were like, hey, and I met Mega Ran, and
I had to. I've interviewed him before.
Yeah, the only reason why Curtis even knows him is because we were promoting VGU at an event, at the Smithsonian in DC, and he was there, and we knew of him, and we were already kind of in talks with his people, but he was actually there, so we actually got to talk to him, and we have this really cool video where he's freestyling, and he even says something about VGU in it because my wife actually handed him a flyer so he could rap about it, and he ended up rapping about it, and it was pretty cool. But that's how that whole relationship. So he was just using a lot of the relationships that we were establishing for VGU to kind of, peel off and do his own thing. But yeah, somebody I was talking to said, hey, they know Mega Ran, and I told them about the whole thing. And they were like, yeah, I know Mega Ran. I guess I should tell him and give him the heads up. And I said, yeah, you might as well. And they reached out on Facebook and told him, because I didn't have any of his contact information. And they reached out to him on Facebook, and he was like, yeah, they were like, are you really going, or is it just fake? Because, there was always that cloud over there. It was a scam. And he was like, yeah, I'm going. He was like, I mean, so far I'm supposed to be going, but I haven't heard much about it. I'm just, my date's open for that date, but I'm still waiting to get, information or flights or whatever it is that he was waiting for. But he was waiting for that kind of information, like the logistical piece of how he's going to get there and what room he's going to have and stuff like that. And So he was like, but if they give it to me, yeah, I'll go. But if not, then, I'll find something else to do.
I
So he
see.
took a real lax attitude about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So also,
But
and another good question I should ask before we start wrapping stuff up is that also as start places, different outlets aside from my own, the Koalition here, started to report on everything. Was there any sort of like conversation maybe you had with Curtis or with your legal advisor or anything of the sort as news started to break out or at least to come out about the cruise itself or at least about the whole controversy with everything else? I mean, was there any sort of like reaction or did you have any sort of thoughts on everything when it was happening?
I mean, honestly, I just wanted to stay away from the whole thing because I wanted to get my act together, right? Like I said, we're gonna start putting our show together for the following year, the upcoming year that's coming up, and so we're just trying to plan that whole thing out. And what I realized is that initially when this whole thing started going down, I would focus solely on getting more information about what he was doing. So it was like just so I could kind of be able to fight it or go against it, and it was time consuming and it was stressful. So I was like, you know what, I can't do this, man. I was like, I gotta just walk away from it. And then as the other people started coming up and kind of saying, well, this is going on, it's a scam, it's a fake, and I was like, and I'm listening to the stories and the lies that he's telling, and I'm just like, this is exactly what we did at VGU. The same things that happened that he's saying is happening to him is what happened to VGU. So he's just regurgitating the story on a bigger scale. And I'm just like, the investor pulling out is exactly what happened with us. Not to say that that's not the truth. I don't know if that's what really happened. I know he was desperately trying to get investors at the time that I issued out that cease and desist. And I even emailed those folks to say, hey, look, you're going to invest into something that's not going to happen. I said, be very careful. I was like, invest your money if you want to, but he's a very shady guy, and he can sound very convincing, and you might lose your money. So I let a lot of those folks go. Let a lot of those folks know what was going on, and and he ended up never getting the real investment that he needed from those folks. And I know he reached out to other folks, and at that point, when he was no longer using the VGU email domain, I had no ability to kind of follow it. So,
Yeah.
I don't know what happened after the fact, but, around that June timeframe, June 2016, yeah, he was desperately trying to get some investors, man. I mean, and I think all he had was, I don't even know how much he had. I don't want to lie. I mean, I do, but I'd rather not say.
Yeah, no problem. So, one other final question. I think this would be a good way to kind of culminate everything. Is there anything like specifically maybe that you might want to say, in regards to your thoughts, maybe to Curtis? Because from my understanding, you haven't had any contact with him since then, obviously, because of everything that's been going on and such. Is there any other final thoughts maybe you want to either not only say to him, but also to some of the other people who are hoping that an event like this would actually happen? Because in my previous two interviews that I did, both with Curtis as well as also with Zach, we had comments of people that, were really concerned. They were really looking forward to something like this. And they would think that something like this would happen. But with all the bad vibes and all the bad series of events that were happening, it doesn't look like that was the case. But any thoughts on the matter?
I mean, I think you guys hit the nail on the head, right? I mean, Zach said, once we let this thing die down, it's definitely got some legs on it. What Curtis actually brought this idea to me when we were kind of, cordial. And he's like, hey, look, do you want to do a cruise? And the format of our show was like kind of what you would see at E3, whereas you've got exhibitors, you've got people selling, t-shirts and trinkets and all that good stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, that won't work on a cruise, So that was the initial kind of thought. And I don't know, if we discussed it any further to say it's gotta be tournament heavy. It's gotta be esports heavy. I don't know if we did that part at that moment or if it was at a later date, but that was definitely part of the conversation. But I kind of washed my hands of it. I said, look, I don't want anything to do with that, man. I was like, we were in debt. And to go into something else that's going to put us into more debt is crazy. Let's just focus on one show, a good show, get that out the door, and then we'll do something else if that's going to be the way to go. I was trying to just kind of get focused on what we need to do for VGU. But I definitely think it's a great idea, man. And if somebody was to do that, that'd be real cool. But that's not where I'm going to be looking at right now. Like I said, we're putting together our show for 2018. That's kind of our focus now. So.
I see. I feel you. So, Cesar, thank you for at least coming on and chatting it up with us. Hopefully putting a little bit of closure to everything that had been going on with the Gamer Gauntlet Cruise. Granted, a lot of people seem to have forgotten, a lot of the story that happened back then. It seemed like it was kind of dead, but at least this new information gives a little bit more context to everything. It gives a little bit much more clarity on some of the stuff that was going on at the time, behind the scenes and stuff. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I want to say to everyone, I apologize. I sympathize with everyone that's been kind of swindled, right? I'm with you guys. You preach to the choir, and I really feel bad for a lot of the folks that got their hopes up and saved their hard-earned money to kind of do something, and then, have it all kind of just taken away like this, And I to be honest, man, Curtis, I don't think this is going to be the last time, we see of him, man. I don't know if he'll resurface again. This was his first soiree into the whole video gaming scene. He's never done anything like this before, so I think he sees the potential and he'll try to capitalize on it. So I think he'll be back on a smaller scale and kind of try to grow it, but just watch out, man.
Well, who knows? So now, hopefully, everybody, with this information and the reporting and the discussions we've had, give a little bit more, food for thought and clarity on everything. But
yeah, and if I might add, man, you did a great job on all the interviews, man. I've seen some other stuff, and I was like, oh, it wasn't very informative. It was just kind of regurgitating the same kind of stuff, but you really went in depth, man, and I think you did an awesome job. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I try to make sure that, everybody gets the right information, everybody gets the in-depth story, and, and the real story, at least all the details, so everybody could judge everything, or at least formulate their own opinions on all the stuff with all the facts and all the stuff. But that comes from not only just the discussions I did with them, but also the discussion I did with you today, and I appreciate it. So with that being said, though, guys, again, let me know what's up in the comment section below, not only just on YouTube, but also on the website. Let me know what's going on. Don't forget to subscribe to the Koalition's YouTube channel for all our videos related to gaming, our podcast shows, and other cool videos that we have here on the channel. And hopefully, you guys, we will be able to see you again soon. We'll be able to talk to you again soon. So peace out and stay epic, everybody.